What's good, guys? It's Reed. Welcome back to another video. Today Sarah's back helping me out with another little performance. This one's a lot of fun. It's a fun poker demonstration, so I hope you guys enjoy. All right, Sarah, here's what we're gonna do. Okay, the first step, I just want you to call stop anywhere.
Stop.
Right there. All right, we'll cut the deck right where you said, and now we're gonna take 25 cards off the top, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25 cards, okay? The reason we take 25 is we're gonna be doing a bit of a poker demonstration. So we'll say there's a 5-player game, and you're the dealer, okay? So you give those a riffle shuffle together. All right, square them up, perfect. That's great. Just hold those in your hand.
Okay.
All right, so there are 5 players at our table. There's you and your partner, who is me, okay? I'm sitting the position right to the left of you. Your goal is to deal you the best hand in the game and me the next best hand, okay? So we both want pretty good hands. Now, you're not any kind of a card cheat, so go ahead and deal us all 5 cards. And the first time you do this, obviously, you don't have any skills, you never learned the techniques. But the second time you do this, I'm gonna try to teach you. So if we take a look, first guy's hand, he's got nothing. My hand, nothing. Your hand, pair of kings, not bad, not bad. And then the last 2 guys, not too much either, okay? So obviously, not too much happened. So pick up those piles in any order that you want. And this time I need you to put yourself in the mindset of a cheat, okay? Someone who's done this before, and I want you to feel like you can do this, okay? And this time I want you to deal the cards face up for us, okay? So start with me. An ace. Right off the bat, you're giving me an ace. That's pretty impressive. All right, keep going. King, 7. Let me just make sure these are all in frame.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's no problem. All right, that's perfect. So keep dealing cards. Another ace. You gave me a pair of aces. Remember, you're really feeling like you're a cheater, right?
Yep.
Okay, keep feeling that. A king. She gave me a king now. No one else really has anything yet. And this, look at this. She's got, and she's doing all of this, she's got 6, 7, 8 of spades so far. And I've got a pair of aces and a king. All right, let's see what you give me next. Another ace, 3 aces. Trips is a great hand in poker. Let's see what you get. A 5 of spades. All right, guys, let me show you this. She has almost dealt herself a straight flush, okay? I don't know how you're doing it. In my hand right now, I got 3 aces and a king. All right, what would make my hand great? We see there's an ace here. What would make my hand really great?
Another king.
What would that give me, do you know?
Full house.
Full house. Can she do it? Show the camera that card right away. The one you're gonna deal me. A king! Fantastic, and that is a full house for me. You're a great partner. All right, deal. This guy, again, nothing in any of these hands. Oh, this guy's got 3 queens, so that's pretty good, but I mean, my full house already beats him. What card are we looking for you? You have 6, you have 5, 6, 7, 8 of spades, so the 4 is gone. So could it be the 9 of spades in her hand? Show the camera. The 9 of spades, a perfect straight flush. And that is how you cheat at poker. It's pretty easy, isn't it?
Apparently. I have no idea how that just worked.
What is good, guys? It is Reed, and welcome back to another video. Today, I got a great video for you guys. This is episode 4 of How to Make Your Magic Better, and in this episode, we're diving into audience management. Now, this is a really interesting topic for me. I think audience management is really interesting, and there's a lot of different things that fall into it. But at the same time, I think there's a problem in the magic world, especially in the magic world that teaches tutorials. And I think you guys will know what I'm talking about. Have you ever watched a tutorial and it comes to maybe a moment that's a bit more risky, or there's a bit more of a moment where you need to really get your audience under control, and the teacher says, don't worry about that, or this will be fine if you have good audience management. Maybe you've seen the case where you ask a question to someone and their response is, this isn't a problem if you know how to manage your audience. I've seen that all too much, and the problem with that is people just say, if you know how to manage your audience, you'll be fine. But what is audience management? They never go any further than that. They never explain to you what audience management is, how you can use audience management, why it works, what to do. So that's what this video is going to be. I'm going to actually give you guys an in-depth explanation, a how-to, a why of audience management, okay? It is a great tool and it is a tool that is not talked about enough on YouTube. So I think this will be a very valuable video for you guys. So anyway, with all that said, let's dive in to how to make your magic better, episode 4, audience management. So what is audience management? So audience management is different than misdirection. And the reason I think, people get confused is I think that audience management is about, getting your audience not to look where you don't want them to look, and getting your audience to not focus on what you want to focus on. Really, that is more in the category of misdirection and attention direction. So directing an audience's attention to specific parts and away from things you don't want them to see. Now, this does tie in very closely with audience management, but I'm going to save attention management and misdirection for another video. Audience management is about managing the audience's actions, controlling what they do, how they think, and their movements, especially if they're being involved in a trick. Now, it really is, in a sense, controlling. We're not forcing them, but we're forcing them. If it's the same way you would use a card force, you don't want it to seem like you're forcing them, but you are, and you're not obviously physically forcing them. It's by what you say and the way you handle the situation that will get them to do what you want them to do, more or less. A better word than controlling may be adapting. We're adapting and influencing them to do certain things and behave certain ways. When we hand them our deck of cards, we don't want them to start shuffling it in some cases. So we need to be able to manage their reaction to being handed a deck of cards, right? So there's a bunch of different ways that you can subtly do these things, because you don't want to make it obvious. You don't want to say, hold my deck and don't shuffle it. To some people it's going to be suspicious, and to others that's going to be the perfect reason for them to start shuffling your deck, right? If you get a heckler type. It's a very broad subject, okay? It falls into what you say, how you act, how you behave, the movements you make. It all kind of boils down into almost like an instruction. Like you use all these things to instruct your audience to do something, but you don't make it seem like this is what they have to do or the trick won't work. Because in a lot of cases, that's what it is. They need to follow your instructions or the trick won't work. So managing your audience is a way of seeming like what you're telling them and what you're doing is rather harmless. It doesn't have much to do with the trick, yet it really does. And it makes them follow what you need them to follow without feeling like they have no choice. Another kind of aspect of this is being able to anticipate their actions. When part of creating routines and creating tricks, you're always thinking about all the outcomes, and as you perform more, you'll learn how different people interpret things, and you'll learn what some people are just going to do, and sometimes it'll ruin your trick, and then you'll say, all right, I need to figure out a way how to ensure that people won't do this again, okay? And so you need to anticipate how people will behave in certain situations so that you can give them the proper instructions and have the proper body language yourself to get them to follow what you want and to manage your audience. A simple aspect of audience management is simply managing your angles, right? Like if you need to go and do a gambler's cop and there's people 360 degrees around you, you only have a few options. You can try to find a reason why you want to move to the forefront of that kind of circle and get yourself on one edge so people end up being 180 degrees rather than 360. That's audience management. You're managing where your audience stands relative to you. You can do a different trick. That's audience management. You're being aware of your audience and you're managing the situation accordingly. Or you can go ahead and do the cop and don't bring any attention to this hand and just act casually and get people to focus on the deck in play rather than what's in your other hand. And these are all things that I'm going to talk about in this video, and that can be done through audience management. Why is it important? For me, the most important application of audience management is using it for tricks that are going to involve the spectator doing things, touching the cards, not something where they're just watching. I love to get the audience involved in my magic, and I often do this, and I'm handing out the deck, and a lot of times, I'll turn my back and I'll say, okay, do this, do this, do this. And if they don't listen to me, the trick's not going to work. But I put faith in my ability to instruct them. I put my faith in my ability that they will, listen to what I'm saying. And through audience management, I can gain the confidence that the trick will work because they're going to do what I ask of them. I think a lot of these tricks are some of the best tricks. Whenever the audience gets to handle the deck and the magic happens in their hands, it's really often the best. And I think that's why audience management is so important. Audience management also makes things run really smoothly. you have a trick, and if you're dealing with a group situation, being able to control everyone's emotions. You might have that one person who's trying to heckle you a bit. Managing them is part of audience management, knowing what to say to them when they ask to shuffle when they can't shuffle at that moment or whatever. Knowing how to, dissuade everyone's attention from that person and focus back in on the trick. How to deal with having multiple packets handed out to different people, and you need to be in control of both of them when those people are handling them, and knowing how to give instructions to multiple people at once. These are all things that are hard to do, but with practice, it's very possible. Like I kind of touched on, audience management is a great part of dealing with and avoiding hecklers. If you have good audience management skills, you're going to run into a lot less hecklers. People are sometimes just going to be suspicious, and they'll start to, let me shuffle, let me do that. And that's just as simple as finding ways in your tricks so that they don't have these thoughts, and when they do, knowing how to deal with it. You'll always find people who are just hecklers at heart, and they're going to heckle you no matter what you do. And in that case, it's best to either walk away or have a trick that is your heckler trick, and there are some good ones for that. And that's all part of managing your audience. The second you point out that person as that's the heckler, that's how they're going to be, you need to know how to deal with them. And the last reason it's really important is having to do simply with your angles, as I kind of mentioned before. So how do we manage our audience? I think this is the most important part of the video. I've been explaining what it is, why it works, but how does it work? What are some techniques? That is what I think too many people don't explain, and so that's what I really want you guys to understand and get out of this video. So first things first, clear instructions are super important in management of your audience, okay? Clear instructions kind of fall into two categories for me. There are clear instructions. You hand the deck to someone and you need them to deal cards face down on the table, one at a time. They need to count each one, and the order needs to be reversed as they do it. That's a lot. You can't just tell someone all of that information. One, it's very weird and suspicious, but two, they're not even gonna understand what half of that means. So simply, all you would need to do is give clear instructions. One of the best ways to give clear instructions is to demonstrate what you want. So if I wanted someone to do that, I would say, okay, I'm gonna have you go through the cards like this, one at a time, and drop them on the table like that. Okay, and I mean, it's as simple as that. They've seen the demonstration of me going through those cards, and now I hand them the deck. And then I'll say, yeah, just one at a time like that, and they'll start going. I see that they're doing it right, and then I can look away, and we're good to go. My instructions are clear, concise, and I've covered all my bases. And a lot of them I've done without saying anything. And that's why doing a demonstration is so great. I didn't have to say deal them one at a time. I didn't have to say reverse the order, because I showed them that. I said, just start dealing cards on the table like this, right? Like this means like me. So they now understand that it's one at a time. They don't even think about the fact that it's going to be reversing the order, yet it's important for the trick, let's say. Also, I said I did emphasize face down in my statement, so that's going to really cement that fact. And then I gave them a chance, and I watched them start doing it. And at that point, you're good to go. So you see how I've combined clear instructions as well as demonstrating quickly what I want them to do. That's going to make me confident that they will do what I need them to do, and the trick will, in fact, work. So this is in the case of if you're handing your deck out to your audience, and I do a lot of tricks like this. So that's one really important tip. You need to make sure that your instructions are clear. Now on this subject, you'll learn as you go. Sometimes you'll write something down, you'll say, I think this is really clear, and then you'll hand someone the deck, you'll explain your instructions, and then they'll start doing it wrong. And you'll realize, oh, they started flipping them face up. Why didn't I think of that? And now you go back to the drawing board and you rework that, and you say, and in your scripting, you make it very clear that the cards go face down this time, and you'll avoid all of these problems. That's just part of clear instructions. You have to understand that we're dealing with laymen most of the time, and they don't understand much about a deck of cards, so you need to really be clear, and that's why I think doing a demonstration of your instructions is so powerful. Another thing, audience management, that's great is what I call like foolproof tricks or plots. So to me, a foolproof trick is something that can't be disturbed by the audience. The audience, no matter what they do with your cards, won't ruin the effect at the end. So a simple example of this is any trick that involves a shuffled deck of cards, letting them shuffle beforehand, because you're giving them the feeling that they're participating in the trick, right? But no matter what, there's nothing they could do to this deck that will ruin the trick. Something where it's very important how they do it, you're giving them the opportunity to have the trick go wrong. Now, I think these are some of the best, and I don't think you should shy away from them. And I believe you can still have nearly foolproof tricks doing this. It just comes down to what we talked about earlier and making sure those instructions are clear. It also comes to patching the different holes that could happen, and how you patch those holes is by practicing and learning and seeing what holes people find in your tricks. So what, someone starts dealing the cards face up, and that totally messes up your trick, and that's a hole. You need to figure out how to patch it. So you just, next time you clearly say face down, right? So these are kind of what I mean. Stuff where the audience is more watching what you're doing really is often foolproof because they don't touch any of the cards at all, right? If you're doing something like 3-card Monty and they're just watching the trick, right? They're not touching or anything like that. You just need to make sure with those tricks that you don't leave any room for someone to start asking questions. You put a packet of cards on the table for a trick and then someone starts saying, oh, there's more cards than you said there, or can I see the faces of them? If you do an adequate convincer and clearly do a good display that those cards are what they are before you execute your switch or add other cards to the pile or whatever you need to do, then it will dissuade people from even needing to ask those questions. So that's the thing you can run into with tricks that are, something where the audience is just watching and they don't really touch any of the cards. But this is more so important when you get into tricks where you're actually handing out the cards and having people participate and shuffle and all this stuff. So you'll often hear people when they teach a trick, they'll say this line is really important, and or you really need to make sure the audience does this or does that. And oftentimes that is the case for a very specific reason. It helps make the trick foolproof so that there are no holes and that it can't go wrong because of poor audience management. Now, confidence is a big thing. If you're just sitting there and you're like, pick a card, any card, and you're trying to do some kind of force, that's gonna make people more likely to want to do this and go all the way to the bottom and take the bottom card, right? If you just say, just take any card, it really doesn't matter here, just grab one. Confident and making it seem like things don't matter. Those are two good, really, really good strategies. Confidence, so especially in your instruction delivery, right? When you say, I need you to do this, deal one at a time, yada, yada, yada. People will want to follow someone who's confident. And if you're not second guessing yourself, they won't second guess the instructions you gave them. Now, acting kind of nonchalant and like things don't matter is also a good way. It might seem counterintuitive because it is really important that they, pick this specific force card or whatever it is. But if you say, yeah, just pick whatever one you want, people will be more relaxed and they'll be willing to just kind of go with it. And it doesn't matter what card I pick, so they'll just, that one, and it makes your force a lot easier. That's just an example, but exuding that confidence will make people want to listen and follow what you say. It's a little bit of a psychological tip there. But you really want to be confident. Act like you know what you're talking about, like you've done this 100 times, so people will be like, okay, he's done this so much, so he knows what he's doing, I'm going to listen to him. Another great strategy for audience management, this is one thing that will get people to stop asking the questions that you don't want them to ask, like, what cards are there? Can I see the faces? Let me shuffle. It'll totally get those questions out of people's heads. So this is having logical reasonings and logical explanations and justifications for everything. That's why having justifications is so important. If you're going to do like a strange hand movement, try to figure out a reason, a justification for it. If you need people to deal like 15 cards, say, and stop around 15, but you want them to be like freely dealing and just stop on their own around 15. Well, if you give someone the whole deck and you let them start dealing right away, they'll probably stop short. Or they'll keep going for a while and they'll go way past 15. So what's one way we can control this? Well, there's two things we need to do. If we cut the deck in half, and then we could, for example, as we're showing them what we want them to do, start dealing a couple of the cards. Now we're putting them closer to that 15 mark, and they can't go too far over it because the deck's cut in half. So that's just a quick example, but at this point, why did we cut the deck in the first place? If we just cut the deck and say, let's start dealing, it doesn't make sense. But if we come up with a logical reason, no one's gonna ask why we cut the deck, and it's gonna make perfect sense why we did it. So what you could say is, right now I know that there's 52 cards in this deck. I might not know the order, but I know the values, I know the suits, So how about you cut the deck about halfway, wherever you want. They cut the deck, and now you can say, and now I have no idea what cards are even in this pack, so it's a lot more fair. Something like that. Doesn't make a lot of sense, really, if you think about it. It's not any more fair because there's less cards in the deck, but to an audience that makes a whole lot of sense. To someone who really doesn't think about it that much, and that's a great technique that I use quite a bit. So you can see how anything you do, you want it to be logical. It'll prevent people from asking those questions you don't want them to ask, and it will ensure that they are following your instructions because your instructions make sense to them. And on this topic, like, you know, you want to prove things. Like, you never want to overprove, right? You don't, I don't think, you know, showing someone that the cards are different before you do a trick is overproving. I think that's a pretty logical, normal thing to do. Some people think that's overproving, but I always like to, you know, if I'm showing someone a trick for the first time, you know, that's one of the first things they'll jump to is that this trick deck of cards. So I always like to say, you know, here, handle the cards, you can look through, see they're all different. But there is cases of overproving. For example, if you're doing a couple tricks in a row and every single time you show them that all the cards are different, okay, then it's going to be the point where you're overproving, and now they're wondering if they're actually all different, or because you keep saying it so much. But providing subtle convincers is really good. I love to do what I call like accidental convincers. So it's like you accidentally like flash or show something that ends up acting as a convincer. So imagine something like this. Let's say I take these 4 cards here and I say, all right, I have 4 10s here. I'm going to take these 10s and I'm going to throw them on top of the deck, okay? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 10s, and I'll lose those into the middle of the deck. So you see what I did there? I never showed you that I had 4 10s, but as I squared them up, I accidentally flashed the bottom card and put them on the deck. So I make that flash feel like I didn't really mean to. I just kind of went like this and flashed the card a little bit and threw it on top. And that's enough to convince people that those 4 cards were 10 when in fact only the top card was a 10, all right? So just little things like that. Whenever I have the opportunity to accidentally flash a little convincer, I think those are some of the best ways to implement convincers, right? And convincers are super important because they're little things that will convince your audience, get them off the scent, and get any weird questions out of their head. And this is all layered in this sort of audience management sort of thing. All right, so here's some examples of ways that I use audience management. So I have one trick that you guys will have seen if you watch my Omegle videos or my Magic with Friends videos that I call Mere A-Can. And so it's basically an amazing A-Can where the spectator has a deck, I have a deck. They think of a card, they name a number, we deal down to that number, and the card is at that number in both of our decks, okay? Awesome trick, but it's very, very reliant on how I manage the audience. I give clear instructions. I've done this trick so many times that I know the different things that people try to do, that people don't understand and do wrong. And because it's all happening with their deck, they obviously need to follow my instructions for this trick to work. So it's all about the way I manage my audience, the instructions I give. I've done this trick, like I said, so many times, and I've been able to patch up those holes in my script. So now my instructions are really clear. I come across really confident. I use I do a lot of demonstrating what I want them to do. I'm watching what they're doing so that I can make sure it's going right. All these things, and I'm managing them to make sure the effect is amazing. Another effect, mental image, is one you guys might have seen. And again, this one is very instruction heavy, so it's important that I don't make it feel instruction heavy by using some of the techniques I talked about, using demonstration instead of always just using your words, because then you get really wordy. The thing with mental image is the instructions are all up here. They're thinking about cards and they're making all these decisions in their head. So it's not with playing cards. So I need to be extra clear so that they understand what to do in their own head. They know, oh, if I change my mind, or if I don't change my mind, which suit to pick from, all these things like that. Again, you can see the performances of that in my Omegle videos. So it's really important that that script has been streamlined and been well thought out so that no one interprets any piece of it the wrong way. Another more classic trick that you guys might understand very well is like out of this world. So if you imagine like an out of this world where you have all the black cards and all the red cards separated, and then you have them start dealing the cards into whatever piles they want. It's very important that they don't all of a sudden decide to look, right? And that comes down to your audience management. If you just hand someone a deck of cards and you say, all right, this is a well-shuffled deck, start dealing in 2 piles. Well, the first red flag is you told me it's a shuffled deck, but you didn't show me. Why would I believe you? So that's going to give them the instinct to want to, when they start dealing, just to see if it's actually a well shuffled deck, which obviously they can't do. So a better idea would be to have the first few cards shuffled on the bottom, and then you can say it's a well shuffled deck, and then you can, put them into their respective piles and say, I want you to deal them like this, but you're going to do it face down. And then you've separated the black and the red cards, and you're good to go. So that's a great convincer. False shuffle is a great convincer. There's a lot of different techniques that you guys will be able to use. So for a trick like Out of This World, they shouldn't have the feeling that these cards aren't shuffled, and they shouldn't have a need to want to check. So another thing, you want to make your instructions clear. You need to do this face down. You have to do it off to intuition. I don't want you to think about it too hard, and then we're going to see how you did off feeling. So then they'll understand that the trick will be ruined if they look. So that kind of foolproofs the trick, because you've just told them, you need to do this face down because we're going to test how you're doing. So obviously if they peek at a card, it's not a test, they've just cheated. So they're not going to want to cheat. They're going to actually want to see how they did. So now you basically don't have to worry about that. And that's kind of how you foolproof in effect. You find a really logical reason for why they shouldn't do something, and they'll be like, that makes a lot of sense. I got to listen. I'm not going to peek. I'm just going to do what he says, right? So that's another example of sort of audience management. Now, how can you improve your audience management? One thing that you should do is to practice your communication skills. This is really easy, everyday life. If you're someone who's shy, a little bit introverted, practicing how you communicate with people. You're gonna run into a lot of different types of people if you're going out there and performing. And you never know how people are gonna behave. So knowing how to deal with different types of people is really, really helpful. Knowing what kind of types of people are out there is really helpful, and not being afraid to communicate with all different types of people. Practice your confidence and instruction delivery. So this doesn't only have to be in magic, but you want to be confident in your life as well. But that, like I said, confidence is key. And practicing your instructions, really with anything. If you give someone some instructions and they don't do it exactly how you want, it's probably because they interpreted what you said differently. So after you see how they respond and figure out how they interpreted it, you figure out how you need to change your instruction delivery so that it is more clear and that there won't be these misinterpretations anymore, no matter how someone thinks. The best probably thing you can do is to perform and test your tricks. Even if they're tricks you learned or tricks that you came up with, go out there, perform them, test them. If you're worried about failing, then do it on people you know who won't judge you too hard, and see how they interpret some instructions, or see how they handle a trick. If you go do a trick and they say, let me see those cards, let me shuffle. Well, then you need to add a convincer at this moment. You need to do something so that people stop asking that. If they don't listen to your instructions properly, you need to sharpen up the way you delivered the instructions, and you need to fix that. So real world testing is the best way to figure out how to improve your audience management and how to improve your tricks in general. I'd say try tricks that are more reliant on audience management, so stuff where you're giving the decks to other people and they have to follow specific instructions for the trick to work, and you can practice making those instructions not feel like instructions and making them very clear and making sure people do what you want them to do. If you have someone who's a little stubborn and doesn't like to listen, that's a great person to practice on, because then if you can handle them, you can handle anyone. So try tricks like that. One, you'll see how powerful they are, and two, you'll get great practice on your skills. And finally, I would say just really be self-reflective. Anytime I perform, that night I'll go home and I'll think about all the effects. I'll think about what went well, what didn't go well, and how I can improve. You can really simply do this after every trick you do. You do the trick and you say, oh, they asked this. Okay, so why did they ask this? Okay, they asked this because of that. I need to figure out a way to fix that problem, right? You can go and you can analyze every part of your trick. Anytime there's something that goes wrong, don't dwell on it. Don't get upset. Figure out what went wrong and figure out how you can fix it and move on and kill it the next time. So that is my main piece of advice. I hope you guys loved this video. I hope it really helped you. I think audience management, again, is one of those things that everyone says but no one talks about, and I don't think a lot of people really understand a lot of the concepts. So this is really just scratching the surface. There's a lot of detail in this video, and I gave you guys a lot of thoughts out of my head and a lot of ways that I practice and improve and use it. And I hope that it makes sense, and I hope that you guys can get some value out of these videos. I want to thank everyone who watches these videos. I know they're longer and they're kind of like a mini podcast sort of format, and it might not be everyone's thing. A lot of people want tutorials, and I got a lot of great tutorials coming, but if you're watching this video, you're getting some great value. I also want to thank all of the subscribers, everyone who's new, everyone who's been here since day one. We are at over 500 now, and that is amazing. I can't believe it. Really crazy. So thank you all for being here. Drop me a comment down below. Let me know if this was helpful or if you have any further questions, and I would love to help you guys out. But with all that said, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will catch you guys in the next video.